So thanks again for joining us. I know everyone's really busy. My name again is Nara Lee. I'm Manager of Outreach at the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation. So I oversee recruitment for all of our scholarship programs, and I'm joined by my colleague, Larry Tai.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening on the East Coast. Again, my name is Larry Tai, and I serve as the Alumni and Outreach Associate here at the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation.
So thanks again for taking the time to come with us. Again, we're going to send out the PowerPoint to everyone so you can share that with others, especially students who are applying to the program and other families. And maybe folks at your school and your communities as well. We're also going to send you a link to the recording, so if you want to view this presentation again, you'll be able to do so. So today, we're going to be talking about the Young Scholars Program. In this webinar, we will introduce you to what our program benefits are and tell you a little bit about the application process. The application has actually already opened, and the deadline for this year is April 14, 2016. We really welcome those of you who are joining us to learn about the program. Some of you may be hearing about the program for the very first time. The Young Scholars Program is a very unique and selective scholarship program for high-performing middle school students who also demonstrate financial need. And the scholarship benefits include individualized, personalized academic advising, which we'll talk a little bit about, financial support, of course, since it is a scholarship, and a pathway to the Foundation's $40,000 per year college scholarship, which is certainly one of the largest college scholarships available in the country. So to begin, we're going to review the eligibility criteria, which some of you may have already encountered, and that's why you're here joining us today. If a student meets the following criteria, they are eligible to apply. We're looking for students to be current 7th graders, that is entering the 8th grade in fall of 2016. They should have earned grades of all or mostly A's, so A's and B's, certainly no C's in core academic subject areas since the 6th grade. By core subjects, we are talking about, we're referring to English, math, social studies, and science. We also ask students to submit state standardized test scores and or SAT, ACT scores. And if those are not available, we do give the option to upload other test scores. Financial need is an important component of our program. Family income should not exceed $95,000 a year, and that's household, for the household. And students need to be attending school and residing in the United States, and plan to go to a high school in the United States. So we already have some questions coming in. Someone asked a really good question. What is the goal of our program? We actually have a few goals. And we'll try to articulate these to you here. The first goal is to enable our young scholars to take advantage of academic and extracurricular opportunities in high school. One of the things that we know about our young scholars is that they have incredible potential, and we know that the final year of middle school and certainly the 4 years of high school are really important for the students who are of high ability to really maximize their potential and grow. So that's really what the scholarship is trying to aim for. We're also trying to prepare our young scholars for competitive four-year colleges and universities. We know that low-income students have a really uphill battle when it comes to trying to get financial aid, and also gaining pathways to attaining admission to the top schools in the country. Academically, we know that they have what it takes. We really use our program to be advocates, to become advocates for these students in many ways, not only preparing them academically, socially, extracurricularly, but also financially. And also, and finally, you know, our goal is to help young scholars develop the skills that they will need to be really the leaders and contributors to our future society. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different components of the program, and this is very high level. Certainly we get much deeper once scholars and families become part of our program. But we really see these three pieces that you see on the screen as the components of our program. The educational advisor. So we talked about individualized advising being one of the benefits of this program. The advisor plays a crucial role in anchoring this program. The second part is what we call the individualized learning plan. This is basically the scholarship budget. And then finally, it's the scholar community that we think kind of rounds out the benefits and this experience of being a young scholar. I'm going to talk about the first two pieces and then turn it over to Larry to talk a bit about the scholar community as a benefit. So the educational advisor. Most of us did not grow up having an advisor or a mentor who was sort of dedicated to our academic growth in our childhood, and I think a lot of us would say it would have been really helpful to have someone along the way to sort of navigate the path for us. And that's really what we've done with this position, this role of the advisor. We really can't, I think, define this person by one definition. You see here that we've sort of tried to capture what the advisor does for the student in 4 different ways. The advisor is a coach, really encouraging students and keeping up their morale and making sure that they know that they have somebody in their corner for all 5 years of the program. Students apply in the 7th grade, we accept students in the 8th grade, and we stay with them all the way through high school graduation. So that is an incredible thing to have a coach in your corner for 5 years. I talked about advocacy, advocating, in the sense that you have an individual, you have an adult who's an expert in education, really advocating for your needs and your strengths and being able to find opportunities for you. The advisor also serves as a guide. So education can be a very complicated pathway, especially for high-achieving students. It's hard to find those resources that are a good fit for really advanced students. And also for students who just have a lot of passions and ideas and they just don't know how to make those into reality. And then finally, the word tailor is probably seems a little odd for a mentor, but because the advisor is the liaison for the young scholar and their family to the foundation, the advisor is really such a critical resource in navigating the scholarship budget and all the benefits that the foundation can offer. So just being that gateway and pathway for the student to be able to access everything that they can to maximize their experience with the Young Scholars Program at the foundation. A little bit more about the advisor. Here are some concrete examples about showing ways that our advisors interact with our families and the scholars. The advisor is really helpful in planning academic course loads, helping choose classes, finding programs for students to enter at school, researching enrichment opportunities during the year as well as in the summer. The advisor also helps students and their families think about how to take appropriate educational risks. Is it a good idea to take that pre-AP course, or go ahead and take that AP course in sophomore year, or try out for that challenging STEM program that might be available after school? Also, a really great consultant in helping make educational decisions, whether it's choosing a school or a program, or when it really comes time, which is sophomore, junior year, thinking about college and where to apply. And then every year the advisor will be monitoring academic and extracurricular goal setting with the students, and in our program that really becomes the anchor and the foundation for what we end up funding through the scholarship budget. And that is what we call the individualized learning plan. So here's a nice picture of one of our advisors who's actually traveling to a conference this weekend to present at a teachers conference and helping talk about supporting gifted students in the classroom. His name is Alan Royal, and he's here with a few of his students that were inducted into the program a few years ago. Our advisors typically have caseloads of about 24 to 30 students. They have students across the country. We usually try to match the advisor with scholars who have similar interests and also can communicate with their family and be supportive. Sometimes we cluster students together by geographic area, but ultimately we try to make decisions about who is a good fit as a mentor for the students. So a few examples of what our financial budget, the scholarship budget, can cover. It really is difficult to describe this program because not only do you get this individualized advisor, you get this, it is a scholarship, which means that every year there is a scholarship budget that is set aside for each scholar in the program, and it's individualized and it's tailored to each student. So no two students' scholarship budgets look the same, and they shouldn't, because everybody is different. So one student might be a musician, another student might have strengths in, competitive math problem solving and those kinds of things. But here's sort of an outline of the way that we approach the budgeting for the scholarship. We're really looking for the scholarship budget to develop and nurture academic skills. First and foremost, the Young Scholars Program is an academic scholarship, so the bulk of what we will fund must be going to academic programming and enrichment. The other thing is we really want to encourage our young scholars to maximize their opportunities, do all the things that they couldn't do otherwise, because of financial reasons and other limitations. So we encourage our young scholars to explore passions and interests and try new things. And trying new things does mean that sometimes we're going to be asking them to stretch outside their comfort zone. We have students who are pursuing music lessons for the first time because their family couldn't afford it. We have students who have traveled. We have, I think, 50 to 60% of our students are, are language ready and also, ready maturity-wise to travel abroad by junior, senior year. Really gained that experience. I know I didn't travel abroad until I was in college, and that was a huge eye-opening and wonderful experience for me. But that definitely takes a bit of risk-taking and going outside your comfort zone. So those are the things that we're looking for as we try to figure out how to craft the scholarship budget. Here are some examples, because I know that will help some folks understand how the scholarship works. One of the things that we pay for is summer academic programs. Every single summer that the student is in our program, they are expected to make full use of their summertime. We know summertime is a really important time for students to get a leg up, to explore new opportunities, to gain experiences that they cannot get during the school day or in their neighborhood. So we pay full transportation and accommodation and everything for them to go to the top summer programs in the country. We also pay for online courses. For advanced students, oftentimes the neighborhood school or sometimes the curriculum is just not well suited for them. They may be placed in standard classes or an honors class when they can actually learn at a much quicker pace, or because of the goals that a particular student may have, it may be necessary for a student to accelerate or try to maximize their time in high school by doing other courses. Music lessons, something I mentioned earlier, that's a possibility. We certainly pay for our share of books. Every single student has books and magazine and journal subscriptions in their academic plan, their individualized learning plan. Software and technology, if a student doesn't have a laptop, we will purchase it. We even pay for Wi-Fi for folks who just don't have that access to broadband or online access. And some of the more interesting things include like conferences and competitions. The wonderful thing about our scholar community is we have a lot of really bright students who have great ideas and they want to go present their ideas, or they get accepted to go to these really great, conventions and things, but they're cost prohibitive. So that's the great thing about the scholarship, that it allows these students to take up those opportunities. Internships and research opportunities are also really important benefits of our program. We connect students with rare opportunities to be with professors. One of the popular programs that we've sent students to before, even med students who are in their first, second years in med school, would be envious to have a chance to work with a cancer researcher that we have a connection with. So I think that is really one of the hallmarks of our program, is to open doors and opportunities for students. And here's a nice picture of one of our students doing some hands-on physics learning at one of the programs that we've partnered with for some of our younger students who go to the summer programs for the first time. It's called X-Flow, and I believe this was at the Wellesley campus. I'm going to turn it over to Larry to talk about how community is the final, the third piece of our the benefit to our program.
So like Nara said, Nara has already talked to the audience about the role of the educational advisor and also the individualized learning plan. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the scholar community. So because we believe that scholars benefit from being surrounded by their peers whenever possible, the Young Scholars Program at the Cooke Foundation organizes opportunities for scholars to meet and also see each other. So here are some of the examples where scholars, part of the Young Scholars Program, will get together and to engage with each other and build community. So as rising ninth graders, all new scholars and a parent or guardian attend Welcome Weekend to learn more about the Young Scholars Program and do many activities together to prepare for high school. So this is a big orientation weekend that is all expense paid, where we welcome the new scholars and their families to the Cooke Foundation. And in addition to that, we have another program called Civic Week. So as rising 10th graders, all scholars attend Civic Week in Washington, D.C. To engage in robust service learning. And as rising 12th graders, they meet again once more. And all scholars come together again to participate in a college preparatory program at Scholars Weekend. So what you see so far is that you see a lot of engagement for young scholars with their community, with their cohort basically, but this is where the networking really begins. So Scholars Weekend is a 4-day weekend during August that we hold every single year at the foundation, and I can tell you that this is a very memorable moment for scholars. Many scholars that we talk to say that this is one of the most memorable moments as Cooke scholars, and it's where past scholars and current scholars get together, and this is where the real networking really begins. They are able to find other people that have similar interests to them. Nearly over 400 Cooke scholars and alums are there, and also get to really explore other fields that exist as well and have conversations with many folks and meet other folks as well. And this is where they really get immersed in the Cooke community. So after the Scholars Weekend, a college tour follows the weekend to several top schools on the East Coast, some including the University of Pennsylvania, Johns Hopkins University, the University of Maryland, Georgetown, just to provide some examples.
Yeah, and I just want to add that Larry actually happens to be an alum of one of our higher ed scholarship programs. He didn't mention that, but I know that Scholars Weekend and the scholar community has sort of a special place in his heart. So so I think that's really nice that you talked about how community is important.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons why Nara gave me this part, because I was able to speak about it from experience. So the Young Scholars community is, as you can probably tell, is close-knit and very integral to the growth of our talented students, every single one of them. And so each year we look to add to this wonderful community of scholars by admitting a new group or cohort of students. So as you can see right now, the number of active scholars that we have in our Young Scholars program that are from 8th to 12th grade is 292. So we have quite a few young scholars. And so this year we are looking forward to admitting up to 80 students to our 16th cohort. We've been around for roughly a little over 15 years, and we are really just looking for students who are ready to live up to the Foundation's motto of thinking big, working hard, and achieving. So here you can see a picture of some of our Cooke scholars. A few of them actually happen to be former young scholars. They don't look so young in this picture. They're grown adults, but we've been around for that long. And we just want to, before we continue, just want to say thanks, for helping us finding our next cohort of scholars. So we talked about what the program is, but we also want to spend a little bit of time to talk briefly more about who our scholars are and who might be good candidates for the Young Scholars Program to further provide you insight on who we're looking for. And here is a picture of some of our staff members with a scholar. And thinking big is not just about studying and doing well. Young scholars are leaders in their communities and in their schools and are definitely problem solvers. We are looking for students who have already achieved and demonstrated high academic ability, of course. They, of course, have strong grades and recommendations from the teachers, but we're also looking for students who have passion and drive for the interest. They may be interested in speech and debate or computer science and robotics. You see a picture of JD right here, who fits that description. He's currently, he's a former Young Scholar and currently studying at Tufts University in the Boston area. But to give you further insight, Young Scholars are just really joyous about learning. Yeah, and they possess this really keen sense of intellectual curiosity. And our Young Scholars come from a range of field of interest and a range of an array of talents as well. So they may be like Victoria, as pictured in this photograph right here. They may be excellent musicians, artists, or even poets. So there are many talented students, of course, and there are also many talented students who have financial need. And you are brought here today because you may know these students. Some of these students may be yours. This is a really exciting time here at the Cooke Foundation. We're always looking forward to partner with parents, counselors, and students every single year. And we're always looking forward. We're really looking forward to having new folks this year. And this is last year's cohort of Young Scholars, actually. And so Young Scholars come from all different backgrounds. Actually, every single state in the United States of America, with the exception of Wyoming. So we make a joke about this all the time. So if you are in Wyoming, you have a student that is looking forward to becoming a Cooke Scholar, we highly encourage you to apply. We come from different ethnicities and also religions. A majority of our students are discovered in the public school setting, but all students who meet eligibility requirements and criteria are welcome to apply. So you may know some of these students, and some of these students may be your students. So if you know a hardworking, creative, motivated, curious, and responsible student and who is really hungry to learn, we're going to go into what is needed for the application itself. So the entire application must be completed online. The application is comprised of several parts. So the first part are the grades, GPA, test score, and awards, of course. And we also require 3 recommendations, one from an English or language arts teacher, another one from a math teacher, and 1 personal recommendation. The personal recommendation, if you're curious, can be from another teacher who knows the student quite well. They may be a community leader, a person who serves in a church or a synagogue, a coach, and these are just a few of many possibilities. And in addition, students also must submit short answers and a long essay based on the application prompts. And furthermore, parents and guardians must submit financial information to be considered for the scholarship, as the scholarship is for students with financial need. And so we ask for financial information for the last 3 years. We do ask for documentation, usually tax returns to prove household income. But of course, at the foundation, we recognize that families have a diverse range of financial situations, and so if you're unable to provide documentation with financial your finances, we do ask for alternative paperwork to further help us understand the family's financial situation. I know many parents about the finances, they usually have questions rather. And so if you have any questions, feel free to put them right now in the Q&A in addition to any of the questions that you may have. Before I turn over to Nara real quickly, don't go on the website yet, but I just wanted to leave with y'all that a lot of the information also can be found on our website as well, and as also the application. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it back to Nara so she can talk about the selection criteria.
Thank you, Larry. So Larry gave you an exhaustive list of the application components. We realize it's not an easy application. Basically, the application process for the Young Scholars Program is modeled very closely to what it takes to apply to college. So a lot of people who apply to our program say it was actually a really good experience for them to have to put all these materials together, to figure out what it's like to ask for a recommendation from a teacher, to understand how financial information is gathered, because we are basically following exactly what top colleges in the country ask for when they're trying to give out financial awards. So because I know that this is not a very easy process for folks, I do want to give you some insight about how we do selection. And that also mirrors what a lot of the top schools in this country do when it comes to admitting really exceptional students. How do you select when there are so many talented students in this country? And so what we do is we use something called a holistic process, and that's something that it's a term that a lot of colleges use, and which means that we weigh a lot of different components. They're mostly equal, and it's not like, there's a special formula to say these are going to be the top students who get our scholarship. But I'm going to talk about the criteria briefly. And we really do weigh all of these together, and that's why we read all the applications and really try to think thoughtfully about who would be a good fit for our program. Because it is a scholarship that is based on academics, it is an academic scholarship that provides a lot of academic resources and financial support. We are looking for students with high academic ability. That's our first criterion. The next piece is financial need. I think these two are the biggest things that we look at that really give us an idea of who are the students who are real contenders for this prize, or even just to become a semifinalist, which is such a huge honor as a national, a national competition. So we're really looking for students and families who will benefit from the financial support. We're looking for students who have persistence. This is a 5-year scholarship program. This is not a scholarship program where a student gets a 1 year of support and we pay for one summer program and they leave us. We're not that kind of scholarship. We're actually a program. So we're looking for someone and their family to stay with us for 5 years, and we need some demonstration of that. A student who really works hard despite difficulties. We're looking for leadership, and we know that it's really difficult for 11, 12, 13-year-olds to go out, and there might not be a lot of opportunities for them to lead formally, but we are looking for their small ways and their individual ways that students are showing leadership, whether it's advocating for other students in the classroom, being a good role model, taking positions at school when they're available, or just being a really great influence in their community, whether it's at church or it's in their Boys and Girls Club. There's a lot of opportunities for students to show that, and that's what we're looking for. And then finally, this is a piece that was really important to Mr. Cooke himself, and he is our namesake for the scholarship, the service to others. He left behind a great legacy for us, leaving behind a great financial legacy for students to be supported through college. We're looking for students who are not going to only better themselves, but give back to their community and to their families and to other people in different ways. So we hope that helps give a glimpse into how we think thoughtfully about the application. So before we go in, we're going to enter Q&A soon, and we see a lot of great questions, so thanks for bearing with us. Just a few tips. So those of you who are in this webinar and you're clearly interested, perhaps you've already started the application, which is really great. The deadline is April 14th. It comes up so quickly. We're already at the end of February. Like I said, it's not an easy process. We really encourage you and whoever you're working with to start early. Actually, start this week. Start an account, go online. What happens is the student starts an account and then adds the parent information, and then you add your recommenders to the application right away. Everything is online. We try to keep it as straightforward as possible. The great thing is once you log in, you will get automatic reminders from us and help and support and tips, so that right up until the deadline, we will do everything we can to make sure to submit your application on time. Every year, Larry and I, every time we present, everyone's always asking us, what's the best way to have a successful application? And we always we sort of joke about it, but we're pretty serious. The best way to have a good application is to finish it, because if you don't finish it, then you're not going to be considered. There's just really no way. We get a lot of applications every year, so we just cannot extend individual deadlines or extensions to anyone, and that's sort of a good lesson in life too. Colleges won't do that as well. So please start early. Please go ahead and get in, and that's the best way to make progress on the application. We also have our website listed here. and we'll include it again, and you'll get it in the PowerPoint when we send it. It's just jkcf.org/YSP for Young Scholars Program. And we also invite you to email us at scholarships@jkcf.org. We'll share those email addresses again, but I think we should probably get to questions. So reiteration, the important dates. Application deadline is April 14th. Please know that that is the hard deadline for all pieces of the application. So not just the student part, but the recommendations, the parent form, everything has to be turned in by April 14th, and it has to be online. Okay. So Larry, if it's okay with you, I'm just going to jump into questions, and you hop in, chime in. If you see, we're going to try to get to as many questions as possible. If you need to hop off and you don't hear your answer to the question that you posed, please feel free to email scholarships@jkcf.org, or you can email Larry and myself at the outreach team. We work more closely with sort of teachers and counselors and general information. For specific questions about, like, if you have a special situation with eligibility or you're having technical issues with the application, that's better to contact scholarships@jkcf.org. For general questions, feel free to contact outreach@jkcf.org, and Larry or I or one of our other staff members will get back to you. Okay, so we have a lot of questions about test scores. If you took the Common Core test, so if you go into the application, we have a section, it's basically called Student Academics, and I'm not sure if I can show it without showing actual student information. So I'm just going to describe it. You're going to go into the application, and it's got really easy to follow menu headings on the left side, and under Student Academics, there's a testing section. So what tests do you need to submit? So there's a few options. You can enter the student's state test score. So that could be if you live in California, depending on what grade they took the test, it could be the C-STAR or the STAR exam, or whatever the state assessment is for your state. If your state used the Common Core test assessment in the last couple of years, and that's the most recent data that you have, it should appear as an option under your state. If it doesn't, we just ask you to sit tight for a couple of days. We had a little bit of a glitch with our application system, so just work on other parts of your application, and then you can come back to that section. We are going to be adding the Common Core test assessments to make sure it shows up. If you have continued problems with that, just please give us a call at our call center, which is listed on the application site, or you can just email us at scholarships@jkcf.org. But if you did do the Common Core assessment, then it should go under the state section. That's a very good question. We have some students who did the ACT or the SAT test through one of the talent centers. And if you're listening and you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay too. We do accept those test scores. So there is a section, if you go below the state test score section, you'll see, did you take the ACT or SAT or both, and it'll give you an option. And we ask you to upload the score report. If you didn't take either of those tests, you probably have some sort of other testing, especially if you were at public school at some point, even if you're homeschooled. So if you have, the Watts test or the Naglieri, or maybe there was some sort of other, IQ testing that was done at your school, then you can certainly upload that. And we just really use this as one piece of it. It's not going to determine who gets the scholarship. We are looking for strong test takers, but it's just one small piece of the very long application that you all are working on. There's a specific question about, ERB testing or ACT. You took the ACT, but it was the ACT Aspire. It was like a different kind. So under the SAT, ACT section, please only upload actual SAT, ACT scores that you took through the talent centers. If you took the ACT Aspire or different versions of that, I would put that under other tests. And just go ahead and note that so that we can make sure that we flag that. ERB, I think the best place to put that would be under other tests. Some of you might be at a private school, and that was your kind of effectively your state test or something like that. So that's fine to put it under there. If there's any doubt, go ahead and email scholarships@jkcf.org. We will take a look at everything. So that as long as you upload something, that will be really helpful. If you did not take a test, we do ask you for an explanation of why, and we do ask that you give a full explanation so we understand why you don't have test scores. And we're asking for test scores in the last 3 years. So even if you didn't take one last year, the year before, you should have test scores in most cases.
And there was a question about how does the educational advisors communicate with the young scholars. So each young scholar, part of the individualized learning plan, to be a part of the program, they have to communicate with the educational advisor at least once a month. And many times, actually, the young scholar communicates with the educational advisor more than once a month, actually. And this is making sure that the student is on track, making sure that they're meeting their ILP, which is individualized learning plan as well. And in addition to that, the educational advisor is also communicating with the parent, with the counselors at their school. And some of the modes of communication include telephone, video conferencing. Sometimes, actually, all young scholars should will meet the educational advisor in person. Here at the foundation, we have a traveling budget for our educational advisors, where they will travel to the young scholars' families' towns, to their schools, and making sure that they get a really great glimpse and great understanding on what the current what the students' school situation looks like and how they can further support them personally as well. So it's a very personalized approach. Although we are here and based in DC, and we serve students all across the country, we definitely do have that in-person touch.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. That's one of the reasons that we accept the students in the 8th grade. Mostly it is a high school scholarship, but we use that 8th grade year to really get to know the student. The advisor gets to develop a relationship and really understand what the family values are, get to understand the hometown and what the resources are. I mean, it's just a really nice program model where you really have an advocate for such a critical period in your life.
Absolutely. And for those who are curious, our educational advisors are highly trained staff. Many of them come from counseling fields. Actually, Nara used to serve as an educational advisor, and now she's working in outreach. But they're not volunteers. They're full-time employees here at the foundation, and yeah. And we have roughly, 16, 20?
Yep, we have 14, 14 advisors
Mm-hmm.
who split the country and the students, and they get to develop really nice relationships with them. A lot of questions about financial situation. So if a student is emancipated, or they're a ward of the court, or they're receiving, there's a lot of special situations, right? If they're orphans, or they're foster students, foster kids, receiving Social Security benefits. A lot of those are special situations. We usually calculate household income by the provider, and we would not use something like Social Security SSD against the household income count. So those are kind of special situations. Our financial section is actually very generous. We pretty much ask how many people are in the household, right, where the student is residing, who is the custodial guardian, whether it's the biological mom, parent, or if there's a step-parent involved. So just please provide us as much information as possible. We made it pretty logical, where you can denote how many people are custodial parents or have full-time custody or shared custody. And then if there's any special financial situations, we actually ask you to provide an explanation, and we look at every single one of those. So please, please let us know that. A question about, if you get this scholarship, does that mean you're ineligible for other scholarships? Not at all. In fact, a lot of our scholars receive many other scholarships, like the Gates Scholarship, the Ron Brown Scholarship. Some of our students are involved in, other prestigious programs like the Teaks Fellows and the Oliver Scholars Program. So no, we don't have any exclusivity on that at all. So we're really proud to share our students with other great programs. We have questions about eligibility in terms of academics. We have some students who might be really advanced in one subject and then maybe at grade level in another. Yeah, we certainly understand that a lot of students who are high achieving might not really have a specific grade that they're in. It might get complicated. So if you have a student who age-wise does not match their grade, I would actually encourage you to go ahead and contact scholarships at jkcf.org just to get the most just to get somebody to look at your case and try to give you a recommendation. I just spoke with someone the other day as well. The student is taking like high school level courses, but chronologically they're maybe like a 11-year-old, 10, 11-year-old, which means they may be, they're certainly ahead of what their levels usually are. And sometimes there's not a really neat and tidy answer. We don't want you to miss out on the scholarship opportunity. The best guideline that we use is we're looking for students to apply who expect to be in the 8th grade in the following fall. So if for example, if you have a 6th grader now who is pretty much on track to skip next year, and then they'll become an 8th grader in the fall of 2016, that is a student that should apply this year. That's a little bit more clear-cut. I understand some other students, their situations might not be so clear-cut, so we're here to help you. Certainly contact Larry or myself at outreach@jkcf.org, but the scholarships at jkcf.org is our call center, and those folks are trained to really look at your situation and try to give you an accurate response much more quickly. We would probably talk with some of our selection committee folks to give you an answer if it's sort of a complicated situation. So thank you for that, though. That's a really good question about eligibility. So we have some questions about the program, there's different, we're trying to touch on different things, so we kind of not just talk about eligibility. In terms of program support, we have students who are musicians. We also have students who are athletes too. That's a great question. We do fund some athletic opportunities because our scholarship is primarily for academics. Athletics will not be a huge part of the scholarship budget, but certainly is something that falls under the extracurricular category. And so we certainly have students who pursue varsity sports and may need equipment. I as an advisor, I remember purchasing lacrosse sticks and paying for rec club fees and those kinds of things, which are pretty nominal. So that's something that the advisor will do just to sort of try to figure out those costs and items. It's a pretty generous scholarship that we have here. A summer program is anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. Travel is another $1,000. We pay for technology and online classes, sometimes a tutor, SAT prep, books, all these things. So in general, we're really trying to pay for those bigger ticket items that really take off the burden from the family. In general, athletics, unless it's something that really is a huge part of the students' growth, then in their passion, we really do try to focus on academics, and that's just because we're an academic scholarship. But yes, we do pay for a variety of things. Do you have to go to certain schools or colleges if you get the scholarship? No, there is no magical list. We are very proud, and if you go on our website, you will see sort of a sampling of where our young scholars have gone, and they include the Caltechs and the MITs and the, all the Ivies, and we're really proud of that. We also have a lot of students who go to private colleges like McAllister and Swarthmore. We do expect our students to go to accredited four-year colleges and universities in order to qualify for the college scholarship funding, and 96% of our young scholars go on to receive the Cooke College Scholarship, which I don't know a lot of people realize. It's $40,000 a year, and it's a last dollar scholarship for 4 years. And then after you graduate college, you actually are eligible for graduate school funding up to $50,000 a year. And we actually maybe should put that in the PowerPoint, but it's a lot of information that is pretty overwhelming for a lot of people. We see a lot of tears at Scholars Weekend, the Welcome Weekend and the Scholars Weekend, when people realize how big the award is.
Absolutely. And actually follow up around that, there was a question about if the students are part of the program for 5 years and their grades drop, do we get kicked out of the program? Nara mentioned that 96% of our young scholars end up getting or receiving the college scholarship, which is up to $40,000 a year, and many of them would go on to pursue graduate school. So many of the students who are a part of the program tend to do quite well. And just to let you know that, as many of you have already recognized, that this is a very academically rigorous program. It is to best help prepare students for the academic rigor that awaits them at the four-year level. So we ever rarely, say, expel a student from our program. We always work with the student, work with the family, which is actually another question: how available is the educational advisor. They actually have a 9-to-5 job here at the Cooke Foundation. Actually, it is not uncommon to find educational advisors staying up until like 8 p.m. talking to the family out there in California, for example.
Right.
So they're very available for you. If you notice that students are struggling, of course, educational advisors there is not only to be an advocate for the student, but also an advocate for the parent as well, making sure that everything is working well.
Yeah, I think, and one of the nice things about the individualized education plan that we were talking about earlier with the financial aid, we expect change. We're with these students for 5 years, and they're just so incredible, right, Larry? Like and it's a hard time in a student's life. When I try to describe this program to people, we are looking for those students who have high academic potential, but then this program is supposed to challenge those students even more to take up all those opportunities that they normally would not have done, which means that they're going to hit some bumps along the way. So if they get, that really, that the first B, oh my gosh, in their life, or even C, or even just, they go to a school, a magnet school, and they realize, wow, there's a lot of smart kids, and I really feel like outnumbered, and I just don't feel like I belong. That's where the scholar community is really huge. That's where it's helpful to have an advisor who knows that you maybe need tutoring, or you maybe need additional counseling or support. That's where we adjust. We have students who are really smart, but they might need SAT test prep because they're really nervous in the math area or whatever it is, and that's what we're here for. So once you're in the program, you go through a scholar renew. Like, that's a really good question. We go through a scholarship renewal process, but you're admitted into the program on the assumption that you're staying with us for 5 years. So it's not really like you opt in and then you opt out next year. That's why we really have this selective process to find our next cohort of students. Will the program assist with placing students in high school summer programs? Yes. So the reason that we select students in the 8th grade is, one, to get to know the student, and also really try to think thoughtfully with the family about, what are the things that they need to know before they enter high school. As a lot of you probably know, especially if you're parents, that bridge to middle to high school is kind of nerve-wracking. There's a way that you advocate for your students, especially your high-ability students, up to a certain point. Once they're in high school, they're in a bigger atmosphere. They're, smaller fish in a bigger pond. There's a lot more options. That's where really, those opportunities can separate those students who are under-resourced, more resourced, and that's where the advisor is really helpful. We don't have, a programmatic model saying everybody has to go to this kind of school. We have students all across the country. We have students in rural areas, as Larry mentioned. We have a lot of students in public schools. But if there's an option for, a governor's school or a magnet school or even a charter school, that's what the advisor will present you with in terms of options. They will do the research for you. Like I said, I wish I had this for my kid. I have to do this for my own kid. Thankfully, I have a little bit of time before they get older. But, you really have somebody who's your consultant and advocate. Ultimately, educational decisions lie with the family. Some of our students do opt to look into private school. Many of our students are really, really bright, and like I said, we take 70 students a year, and they represent the top in the country. So, a lot of those students are applying to boarding school, and if they do, then we will support them through that process. In terms of tuition, we have several questions about, do we provide tuition assistance? So we're considered a last dollar scholarship. On average, if every student has their different budget, the entire budget cannot be spent on paying for school. And one of the reasons we do that is we also, philosophically believe that if a student goes to a private school or boarding school, they should get full aid, especially the students that are coming to our program and, they're financially eligible. So, one of the great things is if, we'll know the schools. We have, our advisors are very knowledgeable. We have very, very good relationships with a lot of the top schools in the country. So we'll do a lot of the advocacy and supporting, and the family and the student is saying, here are the options in terms of where you apply, where you should consider, and then based on that financial aid package, the Young Scholars Program financial support can meet the gap, and that's why we're called the last dollar scholarship. So very quickly, for example, if you were to get, everything paid for by financial aid, and you get a scholarship for your student to a certain private school, but let's say there's like a $1,000 yearbook fee and technology fee that's not taken care of. That's what the foundation could cover, and maybe also, parent visitation if it's a boarding school that they have to pay for, plus uniforms and those kinds of things. And that's really the best way to maximize our scholarships so that we can use our money to help pay for all those other things that are outside of private school. Generally speaking, we will not use the entire budget for one student every year on tuition. Some of it certainly can go towards tuition based on the student's own goals and their situation. So that's very helpful. And yes, the entire purpose of the program is to have the advisor and the program connections help place our students into the top summer program. So whether it's the Oxbridge program or, studying at RSI through that prestigious, internship with MIT, or going to, NASA for an internship, all those opportunities are things that, we will help the student apply and get into and then ultimately fund. Okay, so back to eligibility and so a little bit about program. Are students with disabilities considered students with twice exceptionalities? Yes. Yes, so certainly we know that students may have difficulty accessing certain kinds of services at their school. We do have a question in the application, and I forgot which section, Larry, but it is in the application. I think it's under the parent questionnaire as well as student academics, where we ask, does your student receive accommodations, whether it's for physical disabilities or for other IEP kinds of things. So that helps us to understand, certainly, does your child's persistence in accessing their education despite, other obstacles. If a student, has physical disabilities and they might need additional assistance in coming to our welcome weekend, we've had, we've certainly accommodated in those situations, and I think that's like really nice thing too, having an advisor. I remember one of my students as well. I had to advocate for that student as we were getting ready for her to go to a summer program, and she had a couple of special needs, and we just wanted to make sure that my job was to make sure that that program was going to take good care of her. And so for some of you who are apprehensive, saying, wow, I really would love my student to be able to go to this computer science program or this robotics program, but wow, my kid is so young, I can't imagine them going away, regardless of their situation or their experience or disability. Trust me, our staff as advisors too, they feel the same way. It's like having their own child. So we really do look out for, that's our job, is to sort of vet those programs and know which programs are the ones that are prestigious and trustworthy and have appropriate, adequate supervisory content for the student, and also age appropriate, right? So we wouldn't want an 11th grader going to a camp that is too elementary for them, just as we wouldn't want an 8th grader to try their first summer experience at a place where they're not going to be accommodating to their needs. So very, very good question.
And I saw a couple of questions about the college access component of the Young Scholars Program. And as you probably remember in the beginning, for folks in the audience, one of our goals is to help students, part of the Young Scholars Program, to enroll at one of the top universities in our country. So what it looks like, Nara mentioned this a little bit earlier, is that we provide assistance for scholars to take classes such as SAT and ACT prep classes, and making sure that they get that support that's needed in order to get those scores. And also that our educational advisors many of them come from a college access background, and some of them are college counselors before they came here. And for the time they were here, they are trained to help making sure that the student is matching with their college choices for college fit as well. So that's pretty much what it looks like as well. And some of our educational advisors actually would take the student and the family and go see college campuses, and making sure that the student has a tour and further figuring out which college is best for them.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. So a couple of questions about the application component. How do you submit letters of recommendation? What are recommended? You know, Larry earlier in the presentation went over, we are actually asking for 3 recommendation letters. So that's why we encourage you to get started early. And it also helps to get started early because then you can, you know, have a chance to talk to your child's teacher and say, you know, there's a scholarship opportunity. It's really great. This is what they're looking for. They're looking for high ability, financial need, a student who's really going to work hard. And we want teachers and, you know, recommenders to be able to speak to that. We're looking for an English teacher, English or language arts. So 6th or 7th grade would be ideal, and the same thing, math for 6th and 7th grade. And then we're also looking for a personal recommender. You know, Larry mentioned there's, you know, this could be like your coach or your rabbi or your, you know, pastor, somebody in your community. It could also be another teacher. It could be your, you know, an arts teacher, a band teacher. It could be someone, you know, you've known for a long time. You know, we've seen recommendations from librarians who see that, you know, the student comes in every week and helps shelve books and really is a voracious reader. And I think, you know, we're really looking for people who can give some color and some narrative to the student's abilities. You know, we'll certainly be able to see that a student is academically talented by their grades, that they get A's and B's, and they have high test scores. The recommendations are really important so we get to know the student as a person and what an adult thinks of that student as a leader in the classroom. You know, is this a student who learns well, but, you know, but besides learning well, are they a leader? Are they a student who has great potential, who not only reads the 10 books that their teacher told them to for the year, but comes to the teacher and asks for 10 more and says, hey, I actually want to volunteer to teach the class about, you know, Black Matter because that's something that I've been researching on my own, and I couldn't tell you right now what Black Matter is, but I know it's something that it takes initiative for an 11, 12-year-old to want to study. So those are the kinds of examples that we're looking for your teachers, and that's why we really we need you to help facilitate those conversations and get those teachers to write those recommendations as early as possible. Can a student submit more than 3 recommendations? Unfortunately not, and it's also because we have to read all of them, and it's a little bit unfair if there's, you know, 5 recommendations from one student and 3 recommendations from another. 3 recommendations is certainly plenty for us to get a glimpse of the student. So no, we will only take 3. But, you know, if there's special notes that you need to provide to give us more context about your student, your family's income, all those things, we provide generous space in the application for you to do so. And we really do encourage you to use that because that's helpful for us to see.
Yeah. Actually, the whole the third recommendation actually has gotten me thinking a little bit about how can the parent or the teacher or the student use that third recommendation quite strategically as well. One of the I'll leave it up to the parents and the students, of course, but I would further think about how can you use that creatively to really talk about leadership as one, but also the student's interest, right? Which relationship does the student have with a teacher or a coach or whoever can write that third recommendation to talk about you know, their interests, their drive, and making sure that it's somewhat diversified and strengthened. So I'll definitely encourage folks to be strategic and creative in that matter.
So wow, I've been having so much fun chatting with folks. It's almost 7 o'clock. We're going to actually, if it's okay with you, Larry, we're going to stay online just to try to answer a few more questions because there's a lot of people online. If you have to go, just a reminder, we will email out the PowerPoint to everybody who registered, even if they missed part of the presentation. We'll also send a recording of the presentation out so you can view it again, or maybe view it with your student even, or your family, so that everybody can get all the information at once. And again, please feel free to reach out to either of the email addresses that we put at the end of the PowerPoint so you can get your questions answered. Start those applications today so that we can start tracking, you know, how much you've finished and send your reminders. There was a question a while back about residency. So we don't have a citizenship requirement or residency requirement for this scholarship. I think some teachers here are working with undocumented students or DACA students, deferred action students, or maybe the families are undocumented or the parents are undocumented. Yes, so we don't have any discrimination in regards to that. So we won't ask for your passport information or anything like that at all. This is a good question. Are we looking for students who are like all around all-stars, or are we looking for students who are just really, really good in one area, like your chess star, your music star, or your English star? That's, no, I mean, I think I think the great thing about our scholar community is that we've got we've got all of that. We've got students who are all-stars, who are just really strong academic students, and maybe they haven't found their one passion yet. One of the students I advised was you could just tell he was just a very special, charismatic leader who was very, very passionate about social justice. But it's not like he was, a golf star or a chess star. But he really used the Young Scholars Program to find his passions and to really develop confidence. And now he's studying at University of Chicago, and I think he's going to be. I think he's just going to save the world one day. I don't know how, but he will. So we have those kinds of students. We also have students like Larry talked about, like the Victoria Youngs, who come in with some sort of prodigious talent. But I will say that this scholarship is not for those students who are going to go on the Today Show and just perform music. We are looking for those students. Like Victoria is an incredibly hard worker. She wants to use her academic ability to make change and certainly use her musical talent as well. So we're looking for students who are ultimately going to go the distance with our scholarship, and that could be in a variety of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nara's right. I don't think there's no one size fit all. Every single application we get, and we get a little over 2,000 of them every single year, Nara, and every single one of them look different. You might be surprised that how can you get 2,000 applications for 7th graders that look different? But just to keep in mind that we're getting a little over 2,000 applications that are from very unique and highly academically talented folks. So definitely, and to talk a little bit more about the application itself, the essays are where we're going to be able to really distinguish between really high achieving students and students that should become young scholars. So definitely focus on that, and definitely start early. The earlier you start, the more time you have to really craft your narrative, to really craft your essays, and also get them checked by the teacher. One of the strategies that I always tell parents is make sure that you have someone on campus at your child's school that is partnering with you, making sure that they know that you and your child and your student is applying for the Young Scholars Program, because there are components, as you can see, the recommendations, and also if you logged in, or you notice the school profile for the school itself to fill out as well. So definitely find that person who can definitely help you in partnership and advocate for you.
All right, there's some good questions I kind of want to address because people have been waiting, so hopefully they're still online. So test scores, SSAT is another test that came up, yes. So if there's a test that you took that is not if you didn't take a state test, you didn't take SAT or ACT, there is an other test section, which means that's sort of our catch-all. If you took the ACT Aspire, the SSAT, the ICERB, there's so many different kinds of tests. Please do include that. That's helpful for us to know. If you have issues getting your test scores, so maybe you're waiting for your test results, maybe you have incomplete test results because your state didn't release them, that can be a difficulty. I would say please upload what you have and then put something in the explanation box so that we know that that there's some sort of, there's something missing and that it's sort of out of your control. So that's we're not going to count that against you, but we want to make sure that we know that. How do teachers get notified? So if you have started the application, then you have your own email in the application system, which is great. So we'll send you automatic alerts. As soon as you get into the application, I think the second or third section says teacher and personal recommendations. And literally it's just two fields. One is the teacher's name and then their email. As soon as you enter that information, your teacher is going to get an email, an automatic email from us saying, student Larry Tai has requested a recommendation from you. you, please click here to submit your form. And they will receive a special link that goes to your application only. And it's a pretty easy form. They just answer some brief questions about you. And then we ask them to talk a little bit about you, using their own words. So we keep it as simple as possible, but it's really important that we get those recommendations, because your application will not be considered complete without all three of them. A couple of questions about divorced parents, custodial parents. If you have two parents who share custody, then we expect financial information from both parties. It's very linear and logical the way that we've set it up. We'll basically ask you on the application, do you have two parents who share custody? Do you have one parent? What happens to, what is your current relationship with the other parent? If you have someone who is estranged, or maybe a parent, a biological parent, you just don't have, that person is just not available for whatever reason, or is not willing to provide information, we just ask you to just give us a full explanation as to the situation. Certainly we realize that sometimes you're just not going to be able to get information. If one of the parents is deceased, we'll ask you that, so that you just have to provide one set of information for the student. So hopefully that's helpful. There's a couple questions about the edX challenge. So we did have a special initiative this year. If you took one of 5 edX courses, and these are free online courses offered by the company edX in different areas, and if you also completed a Young Scholars application, you would get special consideration in selection, and also a $25 Amazon gift card. I don't think it's technically too late. A lot of the courses did start in late January. Certainly it doesn't hurt to sign up, because if there's a course that one of the students interested in, like the tsunami course was kind of cool to me, and then there's like a course on structuring bridges. One of the courses is a self-paced course, so it can be started anytime. I think the most important thing is you want to be considered for the Young Scholars program, so please focus on that application. And if the student has time to finish the online course, that's a nice bonus. We chose courses that we really thought were curricularly very interesting for middle school students, and they're all college-level courses, really challenging courses that are provided by like MIT and Berkeley. So that's sort of why we partnered with them for this initiative. Let's see, other questions? So I think we're going to wrap it up soon. If we didn't get to your question specifically, then please do email us at scholarships@jkcf.org or outreach. Let me see. Sorry, we're not. So here, yeah, on the screen, if you're still with us online, those are the 2 email addresses that you can use. And was there a question that Larry thought?
There's a couple of questions. So where can folks find the edX courses if their student is interested?
So if you go to jkcf.org/edx, that is where we have this year's edX challenge. Thanks, Larry, for the reminder. So if you're wondering, what is this edX contest that they're talking about, you can go ahead and do that. Everything is free. Please don't pay any money for any promotions. The edX courses are free. Our application certainly is free. And it's just a really nice resource for students wanting to take classes outside their regular school time. And here's one good question that maybe we can end up with. How would we describe JKCF scholarships to somebody who doesn't know about us? That was wow. So I think when I describe the program, I describe it education's best kept secret. Most of the time people, I think when Larry and I share information about especially the Young Scholars program, there really aren't scholarships for middle school kids. There are few scholarships, if any, for high school kids. So I think it's hard to describe because it's a very foreign concept. There's a lot of college scholarships, and effectively the Young Scholars program is a pathway to a college scholarship. I think it's a life-changing experience for students. It's an opportunity for students to just change their life trajectory and get the support that they deserve. And we wish we could do this for everyone, but we know that we will have no problem finding 100 amazing kids this year, and it's just like a dream come true for a lot of kids.
Yeah, I second everything that Nara has stated. I think I'll end with this, is that Nara mentioned this earlier, that young scholars have the opportunity to obtain the $40,000, up to $40,000 per year to end up pursuing a bachelor's degree, and then there's also another sum of funds for students to pursue masters and PhDs. We have folks with us since the very beginning. We've been around for roughly 15 years, and people are still with us, and it's so great to be a part of the community. We definitely do recognize that the sum of money and the services that are provided are definitely very are appealing characteristics of this opportunity. But to let many of y'all know, hopefully as a motivating factor too, is that if your student is selected as a young scholar, this is a community and a network, a professional network, and an academic network, and a social and a personal network that they're able to maintain and reserve for the rest of their lives, to speak quite romantically.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's so we really appreciate the time you've taken to learn about this. An hour out of your day is certainly very precious time. Again, please send us your questions. We will do our best to get to them as quickly as possible. And thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to start reading those applications.
Thank you for joining us.